Welcome to the Mayoral Minute, and joining me today is Mildura Mayor Jason Modica. Jason, welcome to the studio.
Thanks very much for the invitation to come in again, John. How are you?
Really well, thanks. Great to see you again. Unfortunately, we're sort of out of it now, but we've just had another COVID lockdown. Just seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Here we are on the border. If you could have driven over the Chaffey Bridge, you'd be in Baronga and Golgol, and that was business as usual.
Look, there's some really interesting things going on here. I think there's been a couple of the state and federal governments have sort of been wedged themselves politically. The virus doesn't understand geographic boundaries or political aspirations. So I think that's been difficult. But if we review what it's been like for the last 15 months without a case, is that it did get better and easier, but there's still that disconnect between the version of just quashing cases and giving us some room to breathe. It was good to see some nuance, and it'll be great to have a little bit more of a change this evening. But just that little bit more of a nuance in border areas is really important, not just for us, but for all the states, and how the states actually operate when there is a really interesting event like a COVID outbreak or a virus in general. Tough times.
Yeah, and of course it's the retailers and people in business who suffer the most because it's a financial impost.
Look, I think the state government have thrown a heap of money in the last week. The federal government came to the party, but in a way, but a version of JobKeeper, because this is the fourth lockdown. So people have dipped into their business savings, dipped into their private savings, and maybe even dipped into their super, which is not really advised. It's for later on in everybody's retired life. That deeper support, coordinated, as council gave a lot of opportunities for people to access money through last year and even this year, to see the state and the feds work together so people can get through here, this period is paramount.
Yeah, and I saw your positive comments about the Regen solar hydro plant, $15 million investment in the region at Carwalk.
Yeah.
Tremendous to hear that.
Look, we are really a renewable energy, not just solar anymore, powerhouse. Like, there's so many platforms we can move on, and the nature of hydrogen and being able to export it and being able to generate power and use it overnight. The other interesting thing is a lot of our larger solar farms between Redcliffs and Oyen curtail energy during the day because the grid was never upgraded quick enough. Strategically placed batteries could help, but Regen and the hydrogen will be a game changer and be a positive response within our community.
Yeah, tremendous. Must ask you about the news that green waste is now going to have a charge attached to it when you go to the Mildura landfill. Can you explain what the strategy behind that is?
Oh, look, a lot of costs, EPA levies for landfills. We've been in a recalibration of how we do it. This was actually voted in on a couple of years ago, but put off when COVID kicked last year. So it was meant to be introduced last year. The green bin, for a lot of people, particularly on smaller properties, should be able to get their green waste into the green bin. And for us to be able to divert as much away from the landfill as we can will make the landfill be cheaper to run over the longer period. As stated in our press release, I think out of the 79 councils in Victoria, it's well over 70% charge. We'll be very much on the bottom end of charging, so we're just coming into line with everybody else. I know it's caused a bit of a stir, but it does come back to a bit of user pay or recalibrating how we look at that EPA levy to give us some assistance as a rural council.
And just lastly, the Langtree Mall comes up on the radar, and we know the struggles that have been going on with shops closing and businesses vacating the stores there. A lot of people are calling for what they're doing in Shepparton and Ballarat to bring traffic back into the mall, to have some parking. Where do you stand on that? It's
the only open public space in the CBD. If you look along 9th Street from Ryan Solicitors back, there's not many shops there, and there's many parks. I think we also need to bring into play what the biggest financial downturn in the last 100 years has done. COVID has probably moved people on quicker who are close to retirement, or even made people just stop their business because of what we spoke about earlier, how difficult it has to be to trade in 15 months. The inverse of that is the riverfront, the powerhouse being done up, the amount of development and interest in residential in the old city of Mildura, which it was the old city, 7th Street to 15th Street, Ontario to Benetook. Property prices have doubled and a bit in 10 years. People want to live in there. I don't think we should be making any rash decisions until we get through another 6 to 8 to 12 months of trade in this scenario. We have the CBD plan, which is our voted on and chosen direction. That would be the buttress of where we move on from there. And I really encourage anybody to look at the CBD plan. It also has struggled because of COVID and the things we've had to do to support the community. So some things that probably should have been started have been put back a bit. So just watch this space. Things will begin to happen.
Excellent. Always good to talk to you, and thank you for coming in again, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the invite.
And be sure to get all your news at milduraweekly.com.au, and of course the paper's free in your letterbox every Friday morning.